Hello, Pre-Algebra. Welcome to your first video. You can ignore these dates right here. It's my first time trying to make something like this, and I'm hoping it's going to work. This is my document camera right here. That's why it's next to my face. And so this one is on integers. And the title of the video, we might have also seen number line, adding, subtracting. So we're going to use the number line to add and subtract numbers. So integers on the number line. Let me just scoot some stuff back real quick here. There we go. Oh, bumpy there. So yeah, the reason why we're using number line to add and subtract numbers, because well, I already know how to add and subtract numbers, well, it's because we're doing negative numbers. Oh my goodness, it's such a salty number. Oh goodness. Well, okay, so this is a guided notes video. And so I'm going to show you guys. So in this video, hopefully you guys have these notes that I handed out to you guys already. If I didn't hand them out, I'm going to guess I put them on the center table. So when you watch this video, make sure you're wearing headphones and you're following along. There, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to ask you guys to pause the video at some points to ask you to try the problem on your own. But for now, let's just jump right into it. Integers. So the set of whole numbers and their multiples are called integers. Multiples. So whole numbers, those are things like 1, 2, 3, and then I can skip to 10, 20, 67. Those are examples of whole numbers. Whole numbers do not include things like fractions or like 1/2 or mixed numbers like 6 and 3/4. So those are not whole numbers. And I guess I just completely did the examples already. So those are some examples right there. Integers can be plotted on a number line where positive numbers are located to the right. So the right side of 0 is where the positive numbers are. So again, that's, let me get some green actually, get some green action going on. The positive values are to the right and the negative values are located to the left of 0. So you probably saw something like this number line when you did math lab, or if you weren't in math lab, you probably did number line in a similar course. So let's just look at this number line and see what it's asking us to do. It says use the number line below to determine the location of each point. Label the number line and your plotted points. Okay, so we have numbers like -8, 5, -2, 0, and 9. And maybe you're like, okay, I know what 0 is. That's just nothing. I know what 5 is. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know what 9 is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But how do I get to -2 or -8? So let's do this. And for this, some of you guys, this might be a review, and that's okay. So I'm going to label my number line. I'm going to pick what I think is the middle right here. Yeah, right there, 0. And for each value, how number line works, and again, this is just review, is I'm going to add 1. So the next number, I add 1 to 0. Well, 0 plus 1 is 1. And then on the next number, I'm going to add another 1. And so 1 plus 1 is 2. And I keep going, and I'm basically just counting now. At each one, I'm adding 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. And I'm just going to keep going until I run out of spaces. Sometimes, actually, this number line has a 2. There's an arrow here that indicates that, well, this technically goes on forever. I could count forever in that direction if I wanted to, but I'm not going to because I'd run out of paper and run out of time for this video. Okay, so now we have enough numbers to plot some of these numbers. Let's look at what we can plot so far. So point A is a -8. So, okay, well, -8 is on my number. I have 8, and but not a -8. So let's come back to that one. B is 5. Oh, okay, well, B, that's really easy. B is right here. That's 5. So here I got point B. Okay. Okay, C is a negative number. I'm going to come back to that. Oh, D, that's just 0. Well, 0, that's the first one I did. That's right there. That's point D. And why don't you guys, and then E, well, that's 9, so there's E right there. Okay. All right, now let's talk about these negative numbers. Now look at this rule at the top. Integers can be plotted on a number line where the positive values are located to the right of 0. So here's 0. Everything to the right of the of 0 is positive. What that means is that, like I said, we're adding. So these are called your positive numbers. So I could technically put a plus sign here. If you just see a number with no sign in front of it, we just assume it's positive. So those are all my positive. And then the next part says the negative values are located to the left of 0. So everything to the left is a negative. So if you guys notice that when I went to the right, I added 1 each time for each space of my number line. But when I go to my negative numbers, I do the opposite and I subtract 1. So 0 minus 1, we call that a negative because it's one place to the left of 0. If I subtract 1 again, negative 1 minus 1, well, that's an extra minus 1. We'll get into this when we do addition and subtraction of negatives. Well, that's a negative 2. So all you need to know right now is that negative numbers, they kind of work in reverse. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I say, I'm going to the left at this time. I say negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and so on. These are all my negative numbers. And just like the positive side, there's an arrow here to show that those negative numbers can go on forever. So I have positive numbers going on forever in the right direction, negative numbers going on forever in the left direction. Okay, so now I have my positive and negative numbers labeled on my paper. I have enough to do the rest of the problem now. So now it says that we did B, E, and D, or B, D, E. So let's look at A. A is negative 8. So negative 8 lies right there. There's point A. And then we did B, which was 5. C is negative 2. Well, here's negative 2 right there. That's point C. So if you haven't completed your number line, go ahead and take a minute to pause your video right there, and just make sure you complete your number line. Again, as you guys are watching these videos, I hope you guys are pausing the video if I'm going too fast, so you guys can catch up. You can even rewind the video. If you raise your hand, I'll show you how to slow down the video as well. Go. So just if you haven't done already, I'll give you a chance to pause and write your number line. All right. Let's look at the next 2 questions here. So A says, which point in the set above has the largest value? Justify your thinking. Okay, well, let's think about this. When it says which point, it's talking about the ones we labeled A, B, C, D, or E. So it's really easy to see that 9 is the largest point we labeled because well, if I have 9 of something, like if I have $9, then I definitely have more than $5. $9 can buy me more than $5. $5 maybe just a burger, but $9 I could buy a burger, fries, and a drink. So I'm gonna say $9. Or sorry, I'm saying dollars. So E, which was 9, is my largest point. Now, it says to justify your thinking. I could say that, well, 9 is the biggest out of all those numbers, or 9 is bigger than 5. What I'm going to say is that that point E, which is 9, is farthest to the right of the number line. That might not make sense to you, but it will when you look at this next question. Which point in the set above has the smallest value? Justify your thinking. So why don't you think about that for a second? Look what we did in the first problem, my justification, and see if you can think of what the answer would be for part B. So here, the smallest value would be the value to the left. So even though we just start with negative numbers, and you think, okay, how can -8 be bigger than 0? Because 0 is nothing, and -8, well, that's something. Well, yes, but we say that it's the smallest value because it's to the left. Sorry, I had to fly. Let me just write that down, and then maybe I'll explain a little bit more. So A, which is -8, that is the smallest because it is farthest to the left. So 9 was the largest value because it was farthest to the right. And A is the smallest value because it's farthest to the left. Okay, so let's talk about that. What do we mean by -8 being small? Because -8 definitely looks bigger than 0, right? Well, if you think about that money example, so -8, let's say like you're losing money. So if you're losing money, would you rather lose $0 or $8? So if you want to buy food at McDonald's, you'd rather lose $0 than $8. So -$8 would give you a smaller wallet. So when we look at the number line, that's what we say the farthest number is to the left, that those are the smaller, or excuse me, the farthest something is to the left, those are the smaller numbers. Hope that makes sense. If not, take time to pause it, think about it, and again, make sure you're caught up. And I'm going to go down to the next few questions here. Okay. The next question is, Georgie is asked to plot the number -3. It looks a bit better on my screen than it does on my paper here, but yeah, Georgie is asked to plot the number -3 on the number line below. Where should Georgie plot the number? Why don't you guys pause it for a second and think about that. Look at your paper. Where should George plot the number -9? Excuse me, -3. All right, so here they already have some numbers plotted for us. So we have 0, 5, and -5. We want to do -3. Well, so if you use that diagram that we already made above and just kind of take it down, it's easy to see that, okay, after 0 is -1, then -2, then -3. So here, that's -3 right there. Now, if you didn't know to take if you didn't have that diagram with you, remember that the negative numbers are to the left of 0. So you just start counting from 0, and each tick mark you'd subtract 1. So this would have been -1, and that would have been -2. And I could fill the rest of this out, but for the purpose of that question, I'm not going to, because -1, -2, -3, that would be -4, -5. So -3 is that third tick mark. So 1, 2, 3 from 0. Number 2, the following transactions are shown on a bank statement. List the transactions from least to greatest and use a number line to help. Okay, so again, I'm going to pause and look at the question says use a number line to help. So maybe see if you can find a way to use a number line to help you with that next question. All right, so let's do this together now. So it says use number line to help. So they already gave me the line down here. I'm just going to conveniently use what they gave me and make my own number line. Here we go. So I'll just do what we've been doing so far, but 0 in the middle. And it might be helpful to look at my biggest and largest numbers. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to label some numbers. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, space, 11, 12. That's okay. In math, we can always make more space. Then going the other way. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Oh, that's kind of messing up there. It's okay. -6, -7. Oh man, can I fit it all? -8, -9. I'm running out of space. Let's just see how this works. Okay. So I'm just going to circle the numbers I see here. So, well, one of the numbers is 12, so I'm going to circle 12. -5 is 1, so here's -5. 8, it's right there. Okay, we did those three, $3, and then -11. If I kept going, I would have gotten to -11. Okay, so it says to list interactions from least to greatest. Remember, least, greatest are your keywords here. Let me fix my color scheme there. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm trying to use red for negative and green for positive. So going back to my rule, positive numbers are located to the right, negative numbers to the left. So the least numbers are on the left. And the ones I circled, well, -11 is the least because it's furthest to the left. So -11 would be my least number. And then now I'm going to go to the greater numbers. -5 is a little bit greater, and 3 is a little bit greater than that, then 8, and then 12. So I hope you understood that one. All right, so now let's talk about decimals on the number line. So let me read this and then we'll talk about it. Use the number line below use the number line below to order the following positive decimals. Okay, so what do we got here? We got A is 4.2, B is 1.6, C is 1.05, D is 0.8. Oh my goodness. These are decimals. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Let's look at this number line. So we got 0. Well, that's not 1. They put 1 right here. What's going on? Then another blank 1, 2, blank 3, blank 4. So what they want you to do is something I call mental subdivision. Mental subdivision. You don't have to remember that word if you don't want to, but that comes from science teaching when we talk about how to measure things, especially when you're talking about a ruler. So they want you to imagine that there's a number between 0 and 1. Even up here on this number line, there are numbers between 0 and 1. So what's halfway between 0 and 1? Can you remember? And actually, it's that word. It's that word 1/2. The halfway, 1/2 is halfway between 0 and 1. So we go down here. Well, 1/2 is halfway between 0 and 1. What they want you to remember is that there is a way to convert that fraction to a decimal. So if you don't remember, the decimal conversion of 1/2 is 0.5. Okay. And I could do the same thing for this number. So if I'm going to the right over here is 1 and 2. Well, halfway between 1 and 2, that's 1.5, or we have 1.5. And this would be 2.5, 3.5, and 4.5, and then it stops there. And if I use that same rule, I'm going to the left. Well, this is, I know -1 is over here somewhere, but what would this be? Well, if 1 is over here somewhere, this would be halfway because we're doing half. Each one is 1/2. I'm adding 1/2 each time. So 0 plus 0.5 is 0.5. 0.5 plus 0.5 is 1. 1 plus 0.5 is 1.5. 1.5 plus 0.5 is 2, and so on. If I did the opposite here, just like I did in my number line at the top, and I subtract 0.5, well, this would be -0.5. I don't think we'll need to know that negative decimal place right now because they're just asking us to graph positive numbers. So let's just stick to that. Okay, so graphing positive numbers. So this first number is 4.2. And I say, Mr. Reedy, what's going on? I don't see any 0.2s on here. I just see 0, 0.51. There's no 0.2 in it, or 0.6, 0.05, 0.8. So this is where mental subdivision comes in place. So what you need to do is imagine that there are more lines dividing between 0 and 1. And actually, so I can imagine that between each of these, there's 4 more lines. And so I'm going to try to write this nice and small. This would be 0.1, 0.2. And actually, I'm running out of space. So let me demonstrate using another paper here. So if I have a number line, and I have 0, and put 1 way over here. And I can divide this into 10 more lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's not perfect. But so these are each a 10th of 1. So since I divided 1 into 10 parts, that's 1/10, if you remember your fractions. And then the next one would be another 10th over, 2/10. And, oh, getting blurry here. What's going on? Can we focus? There we go. If you remember, when we have decimal places, we have a special place called the tenths place. We use that for counting, and here's the ones place. We use this for counting tenths. So that first number would be 0.1. So now each tick mark, I'm adding another 0.1. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. We just talked about 0.5s. 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. And I guess, hold on. Ooh, I messed up. And this would be 1 or 1.0. 1.01 is the same even without that 0.0. So keep that in mind that between every number on your number line, you can make these imaginary little lines to represent those tenths places or fractions or whatever. So here when it says 4.2, I just have to remember, okay, if 4 is here and 5 is here, there are some imaginary lines right here. So 4.2 is approximately, and again, I say approximate because it's okay if you can't get it exactly at the right spot. 4.2 is right there. 1.6, well, here's 1.5. And again, if I just imagine that there are lines between here for 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, and then 2.0 or 2, 1.6 would be right there. And what about this one? 1.05. Okay, so can I go back to my paper over here? How am I supposed to find 1.05? Well, okay, so instead of looking at 1.05, let's just take off that 1 for a second. Let's look at 0.05. That's a little easier to tackle with the number line I drew. So I'm going to take the number line from this area right here, and I'm going to kind of zoom into it. Okay? So now I'm going to have 0. Hang on. And then 0.1 all the way over here. So again, taking this and I'm zooming way into it so I can see even smaller. And now I'm going to draw more lines. So I'm dividing the spaces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm dividing the spaces here into even more spaces. And actually, I'm sorry, I circled the wrong spot. I should have circled this spot right here between 0 and 0.1. So ignore my red over there. Just look at the purple. So here, now instead of being tenths, these are 1/100ths of 1. And again, we have a special decimal point for that. That's called the hundredths place. This is the hundredths place. So instead of saying 0.1, because I have 0.1 right there, it's going to be 0.01. And this will be 0.02, 0.03. Oh, right, this, sorry, 0.03, 0.04, 0.05. Hey, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for 0.05. So 0.05 is halfway between 0 and 0.1. So keep that in mind. 0.05 is halfway between 0 and 0.1. Okay? So, okay, let's ask this for 1.05. So what we need to do is we need to find something that's a little bit bigger than 1.05, which would be 1.1. So because we just said that 0.05 or 0.05 is halfway between 0 and 0.1. So that means that if I've those four, if I'm adding those four little lines here, 1, 2, 3, 4, this would be 0.1, which means halfway between that, right there, I'm sorry, this is 1.1. That would be 1.05. That's probably the hardest one right there. Okay, last one is a little bit easier, 0.8. Okay, so 0.8. So over here, this is 0.5. So again, if I just imagine there's more lines between 0.5 and 1, here I have 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. So this would be 0.8. So I did the top right here. So I'm asking you guys to pause the video and try these numbers here. And yes, there's some negative numbers in there, but just pause the video and see how you do with those numbers. All right, so let's try these next few. Before I do the negatives, let's just start with positives. So I have two positive numbers, 1.1, 1.9. So here's 1, here's 2. Okay, I know 1.1 has to be at least 1, but smaller than 2. So again, we're just going to imagine, for me, it's easier to make this halfway mark. So that would be halfway between 1 and 2 is 1.5. I'll write that down even, 1.5. And then I'm going to go and use these imaginary lines here, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Oh, well, I said 1.1. So 1.1 right there. There's one answer. 1.9. Okay, well, I already made 1.5. That's halfway between. Oh, by the way, this is C, by the way. I know I'm not doing it in order. I'm doing it just the positive numbers first because those are a little bit easier to take care of. So now 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. Okay, so 1.9 would be right there, 1.9. Okay. Okay, now let's take care of the negative numbers. Negative 3.5. Well, remember that the further I go less from 0, the more negative numbers get. So -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay, negative 3.5. That is halfway between -3 and -4. Now remember that 0.5 is the same as a half. So I'm not going to go this way because now I'm getting closer to 2. I'm counting toward 4 or -4. So negative 3.5. Oh, I didn't actually do that right. That's okay. It's close enough. Here's -3. Sorry, new pins. I'm still getting used to these. 0.5. That's A right there. Okay, now -4.2. We'll start here and then just kind of work your way to the left. So here is, oh, I'm going to use my different color. That's halfway between -4 and -5. So I'm just going to kind of estimate that this would be -4.1, -4.2. Remember, the reason why I'm going to the left this time is because to get greater negative numbers or lesser numbers, I have to go from the left, right to left instead of left to right. So here is -4.2 right there. There. Okay. And all right, now, what was I doing? Yep. Now 1.1. I already did that. Okay, great. -2.7. Okay, so I know -2.7 has to be is between -2 and -3. So again, I'm just going to start with that halfway mark because I already know that's 0.5. That's -2.5 right there. -2.5. And then if I keep going to the left, that's -2.6, -2.7. -2.7. There we go. So let's see, A, B, should be over here. C and D, that's D, and E. So now finally the first page is done. So if you have any questions, please make sure to ask me. If you need to pause for a second, take a break, you can. I'm going to move on to the back side of this page. Or, excuse me, page 2. All right, so now we're talking about distances on the number line. So let's just read the first problem and I'll talk about what I mean. Mr. Bartholomew asked students to plot a point on a number line between 10 and -10. Diego plots a point at -8 and Lily plots a point at 8. How far are the points away from each other? Whose point is further from 0? Let's see, -10. Between 10 and -10. Diego plots a point at -8. How far away the points from each other? Okay, gonna pause for a second real quick, guys. How do I pause the video? Okay, I know what it's asking now. I'm sorry. I read this problem before, but I wasn't sure if anyone was asking. So sorry about the wasted video time there. Okay, and I did that wrong. Give me 1 second. Okay. So it says Diego plots a point at -8. So, okay. So this is going to be Diego's point. Diego. And then Lily plots a point at 8. So let's get a color for Lily. First question is how far away are the points from each other? So I said this part is about distance. It's really about something called absolute value. So let me introduce it to you. So how far away are the points away from each other? Well, all I have to do is count the tick marks between the two or do a subtraction. So we have 1. Hang on a second. I'm going to mute my microphone real quick, guys. Be right back. Sorry for all the interruptions. If I ever get a good video, I'll learn how to edit stuff like this out. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3. Actually, you know what? Let me stop here, and I'm going to make a separate video about this.